Yeah, well, it's fascinating to sort of compare and contrast the impacts of Russian disinformation in Europe and the U.S. I think, in Europe, the institutions, I think, in combating it are a bit stronger. You have the AI Act, the Digital Services Act, and a number of other policies that have created an environment in which it is tougher for this content to stay up online, in which platforms have a bit more of a duty to take it down. And this is something that we don't have in the U.S. And so, in terms of Europe, a number of colleagues here today have said that there wasn't really a huge impact on the European elections recently due to Russian disinformation. It was there, but it didn't change too much, it's an encouraging sign to hear that. I think in the U.S. we've seen a number of impacts on our politics. We've become very polarized, and this issue of Russian interference itself has become a political issue, and it shouldn't be. This is a national security issue. This is something that affects all Americans, everybody. And so sort of to bring the question into my wheelhouse of America specifically, it's a very different environment than Europe, which Europe has been a bit more successful, I think, in fighting it. Yeah, well, I think that like many countries in the sort of post-Soviet space generally, the Balkans are first on the list of targets. I think that like the rest of Europe, the Balkans have done have made some good strides in combating it. It's very hard, I think, in the Balkans just generally to view RT or Sputnik, for instance, versus in the US, these networks are still very widely available. So that's something encouraging in a number of Balkan countries. I think too that living with the memory of occupation and communism is something that was a first-hand experience, and just kind of Russian imperialism in general. Sorry if this is going too sideways. Let me know if I should reel it back. But living with that first-hand experience is something that keeps people's guard up, I think, a bit more than us, having just kind of watched from afar, if that makes sense. Like you say, there's been a number of new actors here, and so the Iranian influence operations that we've seen, I think volume-wise, compared to Russian influence operations, it's not as many, and the capabilities aren't as advanced. However, compared to 4 years ago or 8 years ago, we're seeing a lot more Iranian influence. And there's been a number of websites, fake websites, forgeries that have been designed to dupe Americans into believing false information. So it'll be a website that looks like the Washington Post, for instance, but it isn't. And this is very much like Doppelganger, which is well-known influence operation that creates these forgeries. It's attributed to the Kremlin, the IRA. And we've seen things like this come from Iran as well now. Which is a very interesting new development, because this, again, was not the case 4 and 8 years ago. So that's one new player. I think also domestically, we're seeing a lot more active far right and really far left mis and disinformation coming to pass. Again, I think we're more polarized than ever. So that's also a new sort of development. Is how the polarization of the U.S. is impacting who's amplifying false information. Yeah, I think first thing is, media literacy, is that if you see something that gets you really angry, or if you see something that that maybe makes no sense, or something that makes perfect sense, too much sense even, check it, fact check it yourself. Look into the source, look at the URL to make sure that you're on a real website. Little things like this can make a difference, in the lives of just everyday people who are, looking at information about the election, about whatever's going on. Just double check everything and just keep your guard up online.